What is up, Chiefs Kingdom? We have a special guest, Brian, the voice of the Kansas Jayhawks. How you doing today?
I'm good, Bryce. Thanks for having me on, bud.
Well, it's awesome to have you on for sure. You're busy. I think the Jayhawks have a game tonight, right? Do they play tonight? I can't
We have
remember.
we have Hawk Talk tonight. We
Hawk
don't
Talk.
play
That's what it
again
is. Hawk
till
Talk.
Saturday. Yeah, but
Okay,
got a
that's
big
what it is.
win. Got a big win on Saturday down at Oklahoma that we desperately needed to win one away from home, and nice to see this team back at full strength after dealing with some injuries and illness of late.
Yeah. Speaking of Oklahoma, do you think the Jayhawks are finally starting to get their swing of things after a strong win in Oklahoma? They're finally getting back. It looks like.
I hope so. You try not to pour too much into just one game, but I definitely think that was a sign of what this team's capable of when they play through Hunter Dickinson, who had 20 points and 16 rebounds. When they, get Kevin McCullough back and rolling again, I think we'll really start to see this team play to its optimal potential. Of course, mid-season, he was named a first-team All-American by The Athletic, and then he had the bone bruise on his knee, which really slowed him down, and his shooting numbers haven't been nearly as good. So once he gets back in a groove and they continue to feed the big fella inside, I think Kansas is going to wind up being one of the nation's top title contenders. We still want to develop some depth on the bench, but I think with Kevin being out 3 of the last 6 games, it forced some other guys to play through some mistakes, get some longer minutes, force the coach to have a little more trust in some of the bench players. And obviously, we've got the best coach in the country in Bill Self. So in Bill, we trust. He always finds a way to get his teams playing the best, heading down the stretch of the season. And we really hope that's going to be the case with this particular group. We've got 3 opportunities left at home, 2 really tough road games in front of us. But we feel like this club has a great chance to peak when it matters most.
Yeah, Kansas City, they have a great coaches, or all the teams in Kansas, the Jayhawks and Spags we trust. That's Steve Spagnuolo. He's a great defensive coordinator. Andy Reid, Bill Self. I mean, we got all the coaches here, so it's awesome. Have you ever met Patrick Mahomes before?
I have, yeah. So I was actually at Texas Tech for 4 years before I came to Kansas. So I had a chance to get to know him for his first 2 seasons in college. And I think what's really cool about Patrick is, though I don't get to interface with him more than once or twice a year now, he strikes me as largely being the same really down-to-earth and approachable guy that he was all those years ago as a college freshman at Texas Tech. And I'll never forget the game that really made him convinced that his football future was what he needed to pursue and not baseball. Texas Tech played Baylor at AT&T Stadium there in Dallas. They also call it Jerry World, where the Cowboys play. And he had a phenomenal game. He passed for almost 500 yards, maybe more than that. I'd have to go back and look it up. But he made big play after big play. And he said, watching a stadium of 80,000 erupt and jump to their feet with one flick of his wrist, he realized that type of electricity and energy and just the exhilarating feeling he got from that, playing on that stage in front of a crowd that big, could never be replicated on a baseball diamond. And Texas Tech was really good at baseball at the time, and he played briefly 1 season with Tech before going all in on football. But he realized that even though he had this amazing fastball in the upper 90s, and according to the baseball coach at Tech, Tim Tadlock, was a generational arm talent that, had he committed fully to baseball, could have been the best pitcher we'd seen in the last 20 plus years. He just felt like the rush that he got from making 80,000 in a football stadium jump to their feet would be unrivaled in baseball or doing anything else. And so that's really when he found his calling, was that day in Dallas, or Arlington, I guess. And I'll tell you, it's been fun getting to watch him blossom and develop over the years, because while his path to superstardom has been unparalleled, I think in many ways he's still the down-to-earth, humble guy that he was way back in Lubbock, Texas. And that doesn't happen with most guys. So that's a credit to him and his upbringing, how grounded he is. I love the fact that he uses his platform to give back like he does through 15 and the Mahomies. And I love the fact that he supports his alma mater as much as he does. I mean, he's been over here for Tech versus Kansas football and basketball. He's been over here to support the Jayhawks on a day when Tech wasn't in town in hoops, which was fun. But I love the way he pours into the area teams. Obviously, Brittany has ownership when it comes to professional women's soccer. So he's got a vested interest there, and he's got a vested interest in the Royals. But he's cheering on everybody. And that's what you want with an ambassador in your community like Patrick Mahomes. And I think Kansas City knocked it out of the park, not just having a, all-time, one of the all-time great football player type prospects, but he's one of the all-time great sports ambassadors too, with the way he conducts his business. And I think we should be really proud that he's the face of Kansas City.
Yeah, I mean, it was awesome. A lot of people back in the 2017 draft, a lot of people wanted a lot of Chiefs fans wanted Deshaun Watson. Me personally, I did want Patrick Mahomes. We traded up, I believe it was with the Bills, and I think the Bills regret that decision because this is the man that has knocked them out of the playoffs pretty much every single year. So,
how old were you when you were studying that draft class 7 years ago?
Let's see.
Well, how old are you now?
14.
So you were 7 and you were studying the quarterbacks. That's really impressive that you were already so engaged and doing your homework on NFL draft prospects. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Who is the top priority for the Chiefs to extend this season? You got or this offseason. Chris Jones is a great player. Jerry Sneed, he needs a contract. He needs a contract. Willie Gay needs a contract. There's a lot of great players that need contracts. Who do you want back?
Well, it's hard to think that Sac Nation could possibly be playing somewhere else. And I loved what Chris Jones said at the parade when he made plans to want to come back next year and all that. It's a business though, so we'll have to see how it all shakes out. But obviously, Sneed's a younger player. So sometimes you tend to prioritize that. In a perfect world, you could get them both back, though. I mean, you're talking about two guys that are at the absolute top of their profession within their respective position and were as integral of a role in the success of Kansas City's Super Bowl run as any. I mean, I think the defense was the big reason they won in Baltimore. And obviously, the defense and offense made huge plays in the Super Bowl. But to me, if you had to pick just one, man, that's tough because I think Chris Jones he impacts the game in so many ways, whether he makes the play or not. He's making rushing lanes for his teammates to his left and to his right by commanding two guys sometimes and, collapsing that pocket around the quarterback, forcing bad throws. But then Sneed has proven to be one of the top cover corner guys in the NFL this year too. And he's kind of entering that chapter in his career where he'll command top dollar too. So a guy in his prime like that, as dominating as he was at times this year, he'd be hard to say no to. So in a perfect world, and I don't know if that's the world we're living in, but in a perfect world, you could somehow find a way to get them both back. But, man, that's going to be a tall order. I'm glad that it's Veach and not you and me having to hash out those contracts.
In Veach, we trust. We're just going to trust in him and hope that he can get these guys all back.
Yeah,
so
no doubt.
He's the best GM in the National Football League, no questions asked. He's done phenomenal. How did you feel during Alex Gordon's College Baseball Hall of Fame introduction?
Oh, thanks for asking about that. He was awesome to work with the last couple of days. We had a 2-day event there in Kansas City. And for folks that don't know, the College Baseball Hall of Fame is making its permanent home in Overland Park at Prairie Fire starting in 2025. And this was a really cool 2-day celebration of the most recent Hall of Fame induction class that had 12 inductees, including Ron Darling, who's way before your time, but he's a big-time announcer now, so you can probably watch his stuff and get up to speed on him there. But Gordon, I'm trying to think. Let's see here. Were you maybe 5 years old when he hit the big blast in Game 1 of the World Series in 2015? It was neat to relive that moment with him, arguably the biggest home run in Royals history. And he's just really down to earth and approachable as well. A lot of what I said about Patrick, you could replicate about Alex. Just so unassuming and genuinely cool guy. Grew up in Nebraska. Dad played at Nebraska. That was kind of the flagship program, for young kids in that state, was to go play for the Huskers and try to play in Omaha in the College World Series. And he accomplished about everything individually you could accomplish at the collegiate level. Two-time All-American, two-time Big 12 Player of the Year, National Player of the Year by numerous outlets, and then winds up becoming an 8-time Gold Glove winner, 3-time All-Star, and hits the biggest home run in Royals history as a pro. So what a great career. And this is a guy who, changed positions during his pro career and proved to be the best at his new position as well. So a ton of respect for him. But it was neat getting to introduce him and have some back and forth. The way the College Baseball Hall of Fame does it, rather than giving these guys an acceptance speech with 10 minutes on the clock, they make it more of a Q&A so they can keep it moving and kind of make it a more efficiently run evening of all these awards and 12 inductees and all that. So he and I had about 5 or 6 minutes to talk baseball, both collegiately and professionally, while also thanking the people that were so instrumental in his journey. And he did such a great job with it. So that was a lot of fun and definitely an honor to get to be involved with that organization. And as a proud Kansas Citian, or someone that lives just outside of Kansas City here in Lawrence, to be able to boast both the college basketball and college baseball Hall of Fames here in Kansas City, with the World Cup coming, with the back-to-back Super Bowl defending champions here. Kansas City Royals are on the rise, just signed Bobby Witt to the long-term deal. And, of course, the Kansas Jayhawks. A lot of people think that in basketball, the brand of KU basketball is kind of that next professional sports team in the Kansas City area because of the year-in, year-out dominance of Bill Self and this program, a program that's almost the winningest program of all time, just a couple of games back at Kentucky. And I certainly am one of those people that believes we carry that kind of clout and brand in the Kansas City market. Now with KU football on the rise under Lance Leipold, back-to-back bowl games, and they'll be playing 4 of their 6 home games there at Arrowhead next year. That's going to be an absolute blast to get to call them in that venue. So there's a lot of good things going on around Kansas City sports right now. And certainly on the soccer side too, I shouldn't leave those guys out either, guys and gals. So a lot to be proud of. And I think the best may be still yet to come as we get a lot of these teams finally starting winning on the same timeline and not just being an era of this team or that team, but doing a lot of winning across the board where you've got stuff to look to each and every season.
I think the Royals, I'm a Royals fan myself. The last few years have hurt me a lot, but I think they're on their way up. Bobby Witt Jr., heck of a football player, heck of a baseball player. This team's on the way up. So I like the team right now. I like where we're at, and we'll just have to see where they go, how they do. I got hope. I think they got a chance to do something this season. What is your opinion on Kadarius Toney right now?
Wow. Boy, you just asked all the hard-hitting questions. You know what? I was glad that he was able to, be with the team, even though he wasn't activated for any of the playoff action there. To be a part of it, because while there were many memorable moments where he didn't make the play throughout the regular season, there were certainly plenty of plays that he made that put Kansas City in a position to win games. And so while right now, it's hard to imagine him being a key part of the future going forward, although, again, I'm just the Kansas Jayhawks guy. I don't have any insight here. I think it was great that he got to be involved with everything leading up to the big game. But certainly, he's had some tough moments, and yet at the same time, you understand why they traded for him. You understand why there was such a buzz around him coming out of college and why he was a former first-round draft pick. Just needs some consistency with the hands, no doubt. But I have a feeling that Veach and company are going to spend some first-round draft capital on another receiver for Patrick. And obviously it was great to see, other weapons emerge, even though Kadarius and Sky Moore, didn't have the seasons we were hopeful to see. It was neat to see Rashee Rice have the breakout campaign that he did. I mean, the second half of his season was even better than Zay Flowers in Baltimore. It was even better than all the rookies drafted in front of him. So I think that, as a Chiefs fan, you got to be so fired up with the way he emerged and the chemistry you saw develop between Patrick and Rice down the stretch. And then, it'd be interesting to see what they elect to do with the rest of the draft as well, if they take another young tight end. But I think there's a great chance they spend that final pick of the first round on a receiver. And it's a pretty deep receiver draft. You could see, 5 or 6 go in the first round and still feel really good about that 5th or 6th guy at the back end of the first.
Yeah, I'm hoping this team gets a wide receiver. I mean, the wide receivers, I'm not gonna lie, they were a little rough this season. They didn't make me very happy this season. They did get better in the playoffs, which is good. They got better when they needed to get better. But yeah, Sky Moore, he definitely didn't live up to what I thought he would do this season. But hopefully he can have that breakout year here next season as we try and go for this three-peat. What has been your favorite moment of the Chiefs dynasty so far?
Wow. Great question. I think that, this year's collective playoff run answered a lot of critics, that talked about the Chiefs not having won a playoff road game. And then you go into Buffalo, into Baltimore, you face arguably the best 2 healthy contending quarterbacks in the game. Burrow obviously wasn't healthy this year, but you had a chance to silence some of those critics and take down both Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. Jackson in his MVP season, take him down on his home field. And then you beat a team that start to finish was considered the most complete team in the NFL in San Francisco on the Super Bowl stage. But favorite moment, man, I'm trying to think back. Was it the Titans playoff game when Mahomes had that big run down the left sideline, spinning and juking and diving his way into the end zone? That was amazing. And then, in terms of like one iconic image,
13 seconds. That's mine right there.
Oh, that's a great one too, no doubt. You can't forget that one. But here at Kansas, I'm looking around my office and there's the iconic images of Mario's miracle in 2008, or David McCormick's jump hook over Brady Manick in 2022. When I think of like a moment captured in time by an amazing photo, I'm going to think back to that frigid cold game versus Miami in this year's playoff run when Patrick had the piece of his helmet explode off. And I think it was the Kansas City Star photographer that somehow amazingly captured that, fractured helmet piece of his Rydell helmet just popping off. I thought that was so, so cool. But yeah, 13 seconds is tough to beat. That's a great point. I'm trying to think, what from last year's run would even be in consideration. But yeah, I mean, watching him play hurt and scramble, on the bad ankle, for the big run versus Philadelphia was huge. But I think early in the playoff era of Patrick Mahomes, that run down the left sideline, and then obviously, this year's playoff run collectively. This will be the one we talk about for a long, long time, because I can't imagine, even if they win 3 or 4 more, I can't imagine there will be a tougher road in terms of the road games they had to go through and the quarterbacks they had to beat and all that. So pretty impressive what they did, and can't wait to see what the next one looks like.
My favorite moment from last season has got to be Chiefs-Bengals AFC Championship. Mahomes, I think there was, maybe 15 seconds on the clock? It wasn't a lot. And he scrambled out to the right, and the Bengals pass rusher shoved him. Flag sent us to the Super Bowl pretty much. That was my favorite moment right there. That was a good one.
Bengals fans disagree with that call. That was your favorite moment. It's funny how one perspective can change so differently depending on what side of the fence you're on. But yeah, that was a big time moment, and obviously to avenge the previous loss to the Bengals there at Arrowhead and get the Cincinnati mayor to stop talking about Burrowhead, right?
Yep. The Travis Kelce, he shut Cincinnati's mayor up for sure. Do you think the Jayhawks basketball wins it all this year?
Good question, man. You're asking me straight up about Tony, and now you're putting me on the spot about the Jayhawks winning it all. You're like the next Jim Gray. You'll have to look up who that is. But yeah, you're asking the tough ones. I think this, just a week ago, we had ESPN College Game Day here, and their analysts like Jay Williams, Jay Billis, and Reese Davis, they were all saying Kansas has the best starting 5 in America. And then we went out and we beat Baylor that day shorthanded without Kevin McCullough, and we backed that up. But then we lost by 29 at Texas Tech 2 nights later, which was largely a product of being shorthanded, the crazy schedule that we play in the Big 12. I mean, over half these teams are ranked. We could have as many as 10 teams in the NCAA tournament. It's a gauntlet. It's a grind. Everything we just said about the Chiefs playoff schedule, that's like the Big 12 every night. And, Kansas didn't look the part of a national title contender on that night in Lubbock. We come back and win at Oklahoma the other day, like we were talking about earlier, and it gives you hope. I will say this, though, the format being what it is, having to win 6 games in March and all the way to a Monday night in April, you got to play your best ball when it matters most. You got to avoid injury. You got to have a little bit of luck. And that 2022 team that won it all had some good fortune. We had some guys on 3 of the teams that we faced, lose players to injury right before we faced them. And it kind of opened up the bracket a little bit. And that was certainly, fortuitous for Kansas, no doubt. But I will say that, it was also a matter of Bill Self pulling strings and pushing buttons and getting these guys to peak at the absolute perfect time. And that's what's going to need to happen with this group. We don't have a Remy Martin type player coming off the bench that can spark us as the best 6th man during March Madness like we had 2 years ago. But what Jay Billis and Jay Williams and those guys said about our starting 5 remains true. And now we're getting healthier with Kevin back, and they don't have to play a midweek game this week. So hopefully our guys will have fresh legs for Texas on Saturday, final regular season go-round with Texas before they leave to the SEC. So I still have national title hopes for this team. You asked straight up, will they win it all? That's tough to say because we haven't seen the bracket yet. We don't know what the path to the Final Four is going to look like. But I know this. We got the best coach in the country. We have a starting 5 as good as any in the country. The depth issues are less a factor in March Madness because the TV timeouts are longer, which means if you play your starters 38 minutes a game, it doesn't feel nearly as much because they're getting a full extra minute of rest at the under 16, under 12, under 8, under 4 media timeouts. What we'll have to do is we'll have to avoid foul trouble. We need Nick Timberlake or Elmarco Jackson or Jamari McDowell to emerge off the bench and provide some kind of spark there. But Kevin McCullough's got to get his groove back. And, he can look at Ochai Agbaji, who went through about a 3.5-week shooting slump late in that 2022 season before he found his groove. Ochai's wasn't injury provoked like Kevin's might have been, but Kevin's got to find his stride again. And it's good to see Hunter Dickinson play to his capability the other day in Norman. That's got to keep coming. And then I think one of the great developments in the last month, Bryce, is that DeJuan Harris, really ever since the Iowa State game, has been playing on a whole different level and a consistent level. He had 7 assists, 0 turnovers the other day in Oklahoma. KU's 32-2 when he scores in double figures. And clearly, that's the straw that stirs the drink for Kansas. So we're excited to see what it all is going to look like come March Madness, but we probably put ourselves in a position where a 2 seed is the best we can hope for. So it'll be interesting to see who our 1 seed is in our region. What does that 2-3 matchup look like? And let's be hopeful we get to that round, right? Because there's danger that awaits in the first and second rounds too. But I liked our starters. I love our head coach. And I feel like we got a great shot to make another deep run. So how about this? You can put my feet to the fire, and I'll say we will make the Final Four. But as for will we win it all, I need to see a little bit more these next few weeks before Selection Sunday to really feel solid about that.
Yeah, well, I mean, hopefully the Jayhawks get it done. I usually root for Ohio State basketball, but since they're having a very, very rough time, I really don't watch them right now. I'm watching Kansas, and they're doing good after the win in Oklahoma. Funny question here.
We got to convert you to a full-on Jayhawk, man. I don't think you're getting the Buckeye play-by-play guy on your show. You got to be a Jayhawk now.
Yeah. I've tried to get some people from the Buckeyes, but no answers. Would you rather be the head coach of the Jayhawks basketball or the Chiefs?
Oh my goodness. It would be so difficult either way because you're following 2 legends that are arguably the greatest of all time at what they do. Bill Self in the next 3 weeks will surpass Fogg Allen as the winningest coach in the illustrious history of what is essentially the winningest program in college basketball. In fact, KU might surpass Kentucky at the same time that Self passes Fogg. So you're talking about the best of the best at the very best school in terms of winningest program of all time. How incredible is that? I don't envy whoever has to follow him. And then you're talking about Andy Reid, who's, he's still, working his way toward Bill Belichick now with, 3 Super Bowl titles with the Chiefs. Belichick had 6 with the Pats. We'll see on longevity if he can, close the gap on Bill. But I mean, right now, who's going to stop him? And I'm curious to see how many more years he coaches. But he is such a great leader of men. He gets all the pieces to work together. He connects with guys on all kinds of impressive levels. And I love his personality. I love how straight up he is. I love his sense of humor. I think he's the type of players coach that you want to play for, but he's a mastermind of scheme and drawing up plays and getting the pieces to fit together in creative and innovative ways. And so, the final chapters of his legacy are still to be written. So that's a really tough one too. Since my degree on the wall is from the University of Kansas over here, I guess I'll say I'd rather be the coach of the Jayhawks. But like I said, I don't envy whoever has to replace those two eventually. And hopefully it's not for many more years. But we are so blessed as area sports fans to have arguably the number one coach in both sports currently residing over our 2 favorite teams. How cool is that? And we are really fortunate. We should savor these moments because we are truly living in the golden era for both Kansas athletics and Kansas City Chiefs football dominance. And what a time to be a KC sports fan or a KC sports fan living in Michigan like you are, Bryce. Respect your fandom all the way up there, all right? I'm gonna send you a KU t-shirt. We're going to try to convert you completely from Buckeye to Jayhawk. Sound good?
Okay. And last thing, are the Chiefs going to get this 3-peat done?
I don't know who would stop them at this point. I'm pretty realistic about it, though. I'm not going to come on here and act like they're going to win every Super Bowl going forward because it's a league that eventually, makes adjustments and figures you out. And I think Jim Harbaugh coming to the AFC West is going to make life difficult eventually, maybe not right away with the Chargers, but eventually. I think that was a great coaching hire. Sean Payton's going to make the Broncos more competitive once they figure out the quarterback position out there. And who knows about the Raiders, but it's going to get tougher, no doubt. And there's going to be, bigger threats in the AFC if Burrow stays healthy and Josh Allen figures out how to win it all and all that. But, let's go back to question number 3, I think it was, when you asked about Chris Jones and L'Jarius Sneed and retaining those key pieces on defense. If they can do that, then absolutely they're the team to beat, and it's not close. But I do think the contending teams in the AFC are going to get stronger and stronger, and the road is going to get tougher and tougher. So this past year was their toughest path to navigate by far, which gives me hope that they can still rattle off multiple more Super Bowls. But at some point, like any great dynasty, including New England, you kind of got to reset. Patrick's going to be here for the long haul and maybe for, 12 or 13 more years. There's going to have to be a second wave of pass catchers that he throws to long after Travis Kelce has gone off into the sunset and retired. There's going to have to be a different wave of defensive impact players eventually when you talk about a 15 to 20 year run. So I think right now you got the right guy making the decisions. You got the right guy coaching them up. And you have a quarterback that is just so head and shoulders above everybody else. It really gives you not just the inside track, but a decisively large inside track on everybody else. And that, to me, makes this dynasty we're in the midst of even more promising and hopeful. But in terms of next season, let's see how those offseason signings go and see which receiver they draft, hopefully with that first-round pick. Let's not spend it on defense this year. Let's give Patrick one more weapon, since clearly some of the other weapons that they invested capital in, like Moore and Tony, are a little bit more question marks right now. If they do that, then yeah, you can sign me up for 3 straight.
Let's go get Mike Evans. Brett Veach, go get Mike Evans if he hits free agency. But thank you. It's an honor. It's been an honor to have the voice of the Kansas Jayhawks on this show. Any last things? Well,
I'm super impressed with you, Bryce. You got a bright future in front of you. I mean, to be closing in on 2,000 subscribers already shows that the future is now with you. But when I think about all that you've already established and accomplished at the age of 14 as a show host and podcaster and announcer, you might be coming for my job in about 15 years. So best of luck. Keep doing great work here with the media stuff, but also keep your grades up. And we'd love to have you in the KU School of Journalism here in another 4 or 5 years. Sound good?
Sounds perfect. Thank you, everybody. Go Chiefs, go Jayhawks, and go Buckeyes.